listening to a Brawl Network production. This is a podcast for the best fans in the NFL.
Are you in the Mafia?
Am I in the what?
It's time for a Bills Brawl podcast.
Second down and 7, Kelly with the tie. Touchdown! Bill Brawl.
Allen. Deep shot. Touchdown! On the line to Stephon Diggs.
And Thurman breaking tackles at the 22, inside the 10, touchdown Buffalo.
Yes, another episode on the Brawl Network, the Bills Brawl. How are you, Bills Mafia? I'm Mike Lindsley, your host. Make sure you hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports, and of course, at Network Brawl on Twitter as well. Tons of Buffalo Bills coverage. Hope you've enjoyed some of the past guests on the program, including Liam McHugh, Eric Wood, Kim Jones from the NFL Network, and now, nobody better than this guy. He is the play-by-play voice of the Buffalo Bills, Mr. John Murphy. Murph, what's up, bud? How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks. Good to check in with you.
No doubt. I love talking to you. Love having you on. Obviously, terrific play-by-play. The games are just spectacular. You did a great job last year again. And now the Bills going to 2021, one win away from the Super Bowl a year ago. They've decided here, McDermott and Beane, bringing the band back together. Feliciano, Williams, McKenzie, Milano. Do you like that? Do you agree with that strategy?
That's a really good question. I've been thinking about that a lot since free agency began a couple of weeks ago. And you're right. I mean, they're bringing the group back again. It's a group that won 13 games, 15 if you count the playoff games. They were really good last year against a pretty tough schedule. They excelled last year. And so it's hard to find fault with bringing that group back. I worry a little bit about, and it's not complacency. It's just kind of thinking, oh, this guy was this last year, he'll be this year. And it never quite works that way in the NFL, right? People get better, people get worse, other teams get better. So that has me kind of on guard a little bit, but I understand why they would want. Look, they like this team. It's a young team. It's a talented team. It's especially offensively talented. And they think they can get more production out of them, keeping the group together. So in that sense, it makes sense. But we'll see. There's a long way to go before the regular season. They still have a draft, still signing free agents today. So we'll see what they wind up with when they finally start playing in September.
So based on bringing everybody back, obviously, you filled holes as well. I mean, if you were to lose these guys, you'd have to replace them and go out in free agency and all the rest. They've done a few things. Obviously, I know they don't have piles of cap money, but they've done a couple of good things, I think. And Matt Breida, as we record this, the latest one, to add to Moss and Singletary in the backfield, the former Dolphin. What do you think is left for them, if anything? And because they've brought these guys back, how does that change the draft strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're kind of doing what Brandon Beane likes to do, and that's not have to draft for need. And I don't think they really have any draft picks to make because they need somebody or any future free agent signings. I think I would like to see them get more pass rush help, but they're certainly not going to find that in free agency anymore. And they get a draft pick who can rush the passer, but those guys are hard to produce in their first year. So they're likely to go with, the couple of guys that they just signed, with some pass rush help there. But, I think F.E. Obada is an interesting character who had some success. He had more sacks than anybody on the Bills roster last year. But and what they like to do for defensive linemen, too, is rotate. They want to get a solid 8-man rotation. They were able to do that last year. They'll probably try to do it this year. And that means you don't want to overpay anybody who's only going to play 20% of the snaps at most. So that's the big question I have is pass rush. Do they have enough pass rush? And I'm thinking about matching up with the Chiefs in particular. We saw that the Bills didn't have enough pass rush when they lost the AFC Championship game to Mahomes and the Chiefs. And then 2 weeks later, we saw what the Tampa Bay Bucks did with a very effective 4-man pass rush against Mahomes and the Chiefs. So I think that's the main thing I think I'd like to see him do. A lot of people are interested in running backs, and as you mentioned, they signed Breida today, and I think that pretty much takes care of the running back situation for the Bills with Singletary and Moss at the top of the list, and Christian Wade getting a chance to kind of prove it, he's got to make it or not this year. He doesn't get the free ride on the roster. Antonio Williams, who had the good game at the end of last season, will be an interesting guy to watch. Tight end, I think, is interesting. They signed Jacob Hollister a week ago, the former Wyoming tight end for Josh Allen, and he'll join Dawson Knox in that group. Tommy Sweeney coming back for his what'll be his second year, I think, third year actually, second or third, but. Yeah, those would be the three big areas, I think, pass rush, running back, and tight end. And they've already found some answers at each of those positions, maybe more to come in the draft in a month from now.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they could go corner as well, and we know Brandon Beane's aggressive. If he wants something, he goes and gets it. And, boy, it'd be nice to see a corner opposite of Tre White. Look, White's obviously a franchise-type guy. He's a cornerstone piece. He's the first true McDermott draft pick. He's talked at length about that with McDermott having faith in him. But he is sometimes exposed in zone coverage, and we saw that last year a lot in the postseason. Saw it a couple times in the regular season as well when Leslie Frazier was sticking to a soft zone as opposed to man. Another corner on the opposite side. How important, John, is that in your mind to help White and company on that defense?
Yeah. I don't think it's a make or break draft, but draft pick to get a corner there. But yeah, you can never have enough corners. I think it was Marv Levy who said years ago, you can never be too rich, too thin, or have too many corners. And I think he's right.
Yeah.
And I am a fan of Levi Wallace. I think the guy is a gamer, and I love the fact that he held off a pretty spirited challenge from Josh Norman last year. And somebody's got to throw. If you're going to throw against the Bills, which you have to, you won't make your bones thrown to Tre'Davious Whiteside. So you're going to throw the other guy, and that's Levi Wallace. So I think Levi Wallace is very good, and I think where they sit at 30th in the first round, that there might be some corners available there. I think we're going to see more from Dane Jackson, who was a draft pick last year and got some good reps and some good playing time last year, and I think he'll have something to say about number 2 or number 3 cornerback. But I would not be surprised if they went to a cornerback in the first round, just because you can never have enough. And I don't know if I would necessarily have to draft a corner to step in and start. I don't know that that's what they're looking for. I think they have appreciation for Levi Wallace too, and I think he's not the greatest at this position, but he's a pretty good corner. And for a couple of years now, people have been ready to sit him down, and he fights off the challenge every time. I like that about him.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's another guy they brought back. I mean, they know their players. They know what they have. They like what they have. And every other guy they've stuck with for the long haul and committed to, whether they got benched like a Zach Moss with a fumble in San Fran or a Taron Johnson situation. He ends up coming through. Zach Moss, before he got injured, was wearing teams down on those fourth quarter drives. I mean, why doubt Brandon Beane if he brings back a Levi Wallace, John? Because the proof is in the pudding at this point. I mean, every single guy McDermott and Beane have stuck with and given their commitment to and their trust to, they've eventually come around, learned, and performed.
Yeah, they really do. And you hit the nail on the head when you said they know their guys. I think that's what they know best. They know what they ask of their guys from the coaching standpoint, from McDermott and his group, and Beane knows what is required and what guys can do. And they're not perfect, and they've made mistakes drafting and signing players, and they will make more mistakes. But certainly, the Bills are in really good hands. I think really good hands in terms of talent evaluation. And it's not just Brandon Beane. He's got a great staff. And they all stayed too, which was kind of a surprise to many of us. I thought, with the success the Bills had last year, the personnel staff would be rated, but they weren't. There just weren't jobs for these guys, and they're all back for another year. And I think they'll be good again. And I think, and the thing is, they don't. The clock doesn't stop for them, when the free agent signings stop, they don't just take the rest of the year off. They keep their eye on what's going on around the league and who might be out there. And with the draft coming up, they'll draft those guys. They'll get rookie free agents to supplement their draft class. They work it pretty hard, and they've done really good at it. That's for sure. John
Murphy, our guest here on the Bills Brawl. I'm Mike Lindsley, of course, the terrific play-by-play voice of the Buffalo Bills. Have you thought about, Murph, that first game back where it's literally back to normal, where it's packed and wild and the tailgates are going and there's the mustard and the ketchup and the tables breaking and footballs being thrown around and music being played? And I mean, have you had time after this season, after the wild, weird, no fans for the majority of it, 2020 craziness? I mean, have you thought about that by yourself?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I haven't really turned the clock. I still look back. I mean, there were so many times last year, well, at least half a dozen times, where I would leave Bills Stadium in Orchard Park at the end of a game and say to my partner, Steve Tasker, I can't believe that the fans didn't get to see this in person. There were just so many great games. It started, right off the top of the season when they beat the Rams the way they did. They blew a 23-point lead, came back, and then won it in the fourth quarter. And the way they beat New England at home, they just had so many great games at home that would have been great for fans. And yeah, I really do look forward to. They're planning on having full capacity, and I think the sun will be shining. It'll be a beautiful day when the crowd files in. I mean, the first thing, to be honest, I think the first thing the Buffalo crowd will want to do is to acknowledge what a great year 2020 was. And I don't know what it'll take. Maybe a highlight package on the Jumbotron scoreboard or something. But this crowd, I'm sure, is going to feel like, hey, you guys were great last year, and we never got a chance to tell you. That'll be good. I mean, that'll be a really nice moment. So I look forward to that. And if they continue to play this year the way they played last year, they'll have more great home games and hopefully some great moments that people can savor for years and years.
I'm still in a 3-year period, give or take. I'm still mesmerized by what this group has done, this regime. I mean, Beane and McDermott building this thing to get to the point where, they've checked off all these boxes. This year they checked off multiple boxes. Playoff win, another playoff win, won the East, swept the East. All the passing records and all that are the numbers, but what they're looking to do and build and win and get to the top. As this thing has gone along, when did you realize, hey, these two guys really understand what's going on here, and I believe in Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott? When was your moment?
I mean, it's hard to mention one moment because I got to know both of them a little bit and realized how serious they were about their mission, and they take it seriously. I mean, this past year, when they made playoffs 3 out of 4 years, a franchise that playoffs were a joke, 17 years without a playoff spot. Now they've been in the playoffs 3 out of the last 4. The first time, 2017, they squeaked in. There's no question about that. They needed the miracle finish in the Cincinnati-Baltimore game on the last day of the season to get in. So, I'm not going to say they didn't earn that one, but they needed a lot of help to get in there. But since then, they won 10 games 2 years ago and 13 games last year. That's a legitimate team. Yeah. That's a legitimate franchise that they've built. And it's hard to keep it going, I think. Some people would tell you it's harder to keep it going than it is to build it up. And they know that. I think McDermott and Beane know that, and they know they'll be tested. And that's, I find that intriguing. We were talking about it earlier, you and I, about how they kind of they're bringing back the same band. They're standing pat personnel-wise. And they know what that means, and people might accuse them of resting on their laurels, but I think they thought it through and said, where are we going to find a better linebacker than Matt Milano, a better fit for this team? Where are we going to find a better center than Mitch Morse? Maybe we can adjust his salary a little bit, Feliciano. They recognize that they have some pretty good guys. They have a really good, and this is, I think, an important part of the Bills' success. They have great personnel, but they really have chemistry, and that's, I think, a thing that gets overlooked. When McDermott came here in 2017, and of course the next year, 2018, they only won 6. And people locally, observers of the team would laugh when McDermott talked about chemistry and building a culture. And I think we've discovered that really is serious, and it really does mean something. When you got players, free agents, as the Bills have had this spring, who have an opportunity to go elsewhere, and they say, no, I'm going to stay here. Will it require me to take a pay cut? Yes, it will. Okay, I'll take a little pay cut in order to stay here. That's culture. I mean, that's team culture, and that's the kind of culture they want. Guys who, the NFL is not just about the money and the fame and the accolades. It's about winning and having friends that you're winning with and enjoying the process. They built a team like that, and I guess this past year, the season 2020 season is when I discovered how much they knew about. I'm talking about McDermott especially, how right he was about building a culture and chemistry and finding the right group to make this thing work. It's not just talent; it's the type of players that you want around you, and I think they've managed to do that.
Final one for you, John. The expectation for 2021 is obvious with the fan base. We know how it goes. You make the AFC title game. The next obvious step is, well, now, got to get to the Super Bowl. We know that you hit the reset button and everything starts over. Everybody knows that. Nobody knows that more than Brandon Beane, McDermott, the players. Having said that, what they have going on right now, what they did in 2020, bringing players back together, continuity with Dable and Allen, the coordinators stay across the board, all the assistants, all the front office people underneath Brandon Beane as well. Do you now feel that you will see, in your time as a play-by-play voice of the Bills, a championship team, a Super Bowl winner?
Yes, I think we'll probably see it this year. I think we'll see it this year. I mean,
really?
I'll tell you what sent that big message to me. It was the signing of Mitch Trubisky a week or two ago.
Another one. Good point. Yep.
You know what I mean? He's a one-year deal, as is Breida signed today. One-year deal, plugs a hole. Look, everybody loves Matt Barkley. Josh Allen is at the front of that line, and yet they probably think they probably think they've been skating on thin ice with Josh Allen for a couple of years, not really missing any time. Trubisky, former second overall pick, right?
Yeah,
gives them a more than capable backup guy who can fill in for a week or two if something happens to Josh. And to me, that was the sign that the Super Bowl window is open. Yes, the Chiefs own the AFC now for 3 years, but this is their year. This is the year the Bills, I think are not counting on it, but expecting to win the Super Bowl. Not just go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, and that makes it kind of an exciting offseason, and it'll be really fun when they start playing. I'm not saying they will; it's not a guarantee, but I think they've made it plain by the moves they've made over the first 2 weeks here of free agency that they plan on playing in the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl very, very soon, like this year.
The voice of the Buffalo Bills, John Murphy. Murph, you're the best. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks. Good talking with you, Mike.
I'm glad he brought up Mitch Trubisky as well, because for the most part, obviously the storyline has been in the offseason that the Bills are not going to go out and make the huge splash outside the walls. They're not going to go, and again, the cap money doesn't allow them to do it anyway, right, for the most part. I mean, even the fans who are fed up with Dawson Knox, which I'm not. I don't understand that. He's a really good blocker. He's a big physical guy. He's a great athlete. And he's only going to get better in the system. He's not a number one tight end. He might not even be a number two tight end. But you're not going to say, oh, well, because of Dawson Knox, and I know what Travis Kelce does in Kansas City. You're not just going to say, well, we got to go blow everything on Jonnu Smith, right? Instead, they bring back Milano under the market value. Williams, Feliciano, all these guys under the market value. They basically bring back Isaiah McKenzie for a bag of footballs. And then the next thing is bringing in, the Matt Breidas and the Mitch Trubiskys, where it's plug and play, and that's exactly what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott want to do. This is a team that knows its players, knows who they have, like who they have. If a guy is a little bit down, etc., they know to stay with him and how to work with him. Taron Johnson, as I mentioned, Zach Moss fumbling in San Fran, no problem. He gets benched, he comes back, and just wears teams down in the fourth quarter of the regular season. Huge runs, just baby bull type stuff. And then he, of course, got hurt, but he was a huge, huge component. Devin Singletary, Moss, now Breida in the backfield. Maybe now because the first round, that pick at 30, maybe Brandon Beane trades down. He could trade up and get the guy he wants. Again, I would love, and I know what Murph said, but I would love a corner opposite Tre White. I think that'd be huge for this team. And again, it's one of those last spots for the Bills to just say, hey, here's our model. Here's our core. Allen, Diggs, Feliciano and Dawkins, Milano, Edmonds, Tre White. This is our core. And, Jerry Hughes and some veteran guys, kind of on the back end a little bit. Some guys younger than even the ones I mentioned. On the front end a little bit. But everybody back. Everybody there. Well, then what do? Grab him, plug him in. Grab him, plug him in. And again, another situation where this is taking place is F.A. Obada the former Panther, the defensive end, completely flying under the radar, right? We heard all off-season long so far about Yannick Ngakoue and Carl Lawson and get this guy and get that guy and Dupree, who went to Tennessee. Here's a guy who knows the staff, knows his coaches, and he's kind of a versatile type guy at 6'6", 265, and he's going to be perfect in the 4-3 as well for this team. And he knows all about what Eric Washington is going to bring to the table. There are no surprises. He's going to a comfort zone. Yes, the Carolina Panthers North, right? The Buffalo Panthers. The countless guys they've brought in from a coaching standpoint, player standpoint, etc. This is just another of one of those deals. But I think it's perfect because, again, it's under the radar. It's a depth piece. You're going to be able to give him a bunch of different reps. You can plug and play him on either side. If you have issues with Jerry Hughes, you can put him in, and by issues I mean maybe an injury or something of that nature. And really, the Bills, I think, because they know their players and because they like their players, that also has to do with them not going out and getting the immediate, well, they need this, they need that. Because, hey, we don't need that. We have guys who are going to fill what our needs are. In other words, A.J. Epinesa, Ed Oliver. I mean, if the Bills have 2 or 3 guys on defense who can literally take that next jump, right? If Ed Oliver takes the next step as a pass rusher, this defense can, and I know it's not only about one guy, but he's a top 10 pick. He has not shown. I know that all the analytic people want to come at me with, well, look at the PFF, dive. I don't give a crap about that stuff. You watch the games, you see what happens. That's all you need, right? The Bills and Ed Oliver, if he turns up the heat in 2021, if he becomes that much more ferocious, if he gets after the quarterback and sacks the quarterback 5-6 times in 2021, wreaking havoc, stopping the run, etc. You put Oliver with still a very effective Jerry Hughes. You've got Star Lotulelei. You've got the linebackers running wild. You've got a lot of guys going out. You got Epinesa back. You got Klein back. This is a defense that, again, what do they need? They need a pass rusher. They still can go get one in the draft, of course, but I think F.A. Obada is going to be a guy who you can plug and play as a fresh pass rusher. You bring him in. He knows the system. He knows Eric Washington. He likes the 4-3. He's versatile, right? He's another plug and play guy. He goes in that category of the Matt Breidas and the Mitch Trubiskys and, the Matt Hawks of the world. Although Corey Bajorquez, I'm going to kind of miss him, but this is the plan all along. This is what the Bills wanted to do all along. Hollister as well. I mean, this is the plan. We want to run it right back, and we want to just plug and play. We've got the model. We've got the core players. Now we just have a couple of pieces of the puzzle. We know exactly where the puzzle pieces are going to go. We just have to go find them. But I like this signing for the Bills in terms of Obada. I think it's a wise move. It's more of a fit move. But again, a lot of the players on the Bills right now, they're the fit. I mean, you hear it all the time, fit and system in the NFL. Quick word on Matt Breida as well. I mean, this is going to give the Bills, he's fast as hell. So it's going to give the Bills even more speed. You had the 1-2 punch of Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. Now you add big-time speed to the backfield as well. 54 games, 19 starts, 2,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns on 440 carries. Those are the numbers. And he's got 657 yards and 4 touchdowns on 76 receptions. This guy, by the way, is only 26 years old. He can catch out of the backfield. He can burn it. And I got to tell you Bills fans out there, I like this move not just from a depth perspective, not just from a speed perspective. You know, every time he touches the ball, he's one of those type of guys who can just take it to the house. Another reason why I really, really, really like this move is because we don't know. There's two reasons. One, we don't know, even though I'm totally in on Singletary and Moss in terms of letting those guys continue to grow in the Bills system. We don't know if they're going to work out. If for some reason one or both of those guys don't work out and Breida comes in and all of a sudden you're looking at him and going, hey, you know what? Like, let's go with him and A or B from that tandem of Moss and Singletary, right? The second thing I think this does, for as electric and for as talented as Travis Etienne is, or Najee Harris with Clemson and Alabama respectively in the upcoming NFL draft, I don't want the Bills to take a running back in the first round. I didn't then, I don't now. Now it's very unlikely, of course, because they did bring in Breida, although who knows, Brandon Beane, again, he's got his magic wand out. But I don't want a running back. I think the Bills at this point, with everything they've done, bringing guys back, everything we've talked about, the plug-and-play guys, Breida, Trubisky, Obada, all these players, right? What you're doing, Matt Hawk, what you're doing is, now that all these guys are here, there are two spots. No, there's one for sure, and that second one is kind of a wild card because do you go get more depth or a more high-profile pass rusher out of the NFL draft? Edge rusher, despite bringing in Obada, right, and they have, obviously, the players on their team now, but do they have yet a guy who can terrify the offense? We have to game plan around him. Again, they feel probably that Epinesa, Klein, and more importantly, Ed Oliver, if Ed Oliver takes that next step, they've got him. They already have him in-house, right? That is a question. I don't know as if it's as much of a need piece, so I'm probably not going to say two need pieces. But I am going to say that corner is one. I mean, I would love if the Bills even took a chance, traded up, and got J.C. Horn out of South Carolina, put him on the other side of Tre White, let's go, right? And then from there, you're going to just plug and play with depth pieces and, guys you need and just kind of layer in the roster. But I think everything that the Bills have done so far has really been great. I think it's been fantastic, and I am all in on bringing the band back together, running it back in 2021 to try and make a charge towards the Super Bowl. Big time thanks to John Murphy, the play-by-play man of the Buffalo Bills, for joining me, Mike Lindsley, on the Bills Brawl. Thanks to you, Bills Mafia, for listening as well. And don't forget to hit me on Twitter at MikeLSports. And of course, you can hit us on the Brawl Network at Network Brawl. Make sure you download and subscribe to all of our podcasts on the platform. All the NFL teams, man. Bears, Chargers, Bills, Dolphins, you name it. Go ahead and download and subscribe to Network Brawl and all those specific pods as well for football fans of all kind. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.